Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Boy, you're in for a treat today. Just came across another scam artist here, Adam Kobeissi. Kobeissi letter. And so, I decided what I'm going to be doing is the backlog of these scammers is just so enormous. And I like to prepare and do a very meticulous, detailed, logically presented, organized presentation on these guys. And I just don't have time. Otherwise, I'm just going to have to do it on the fly, like I'm going to do with this guy today. Otherwise, I'm just going to miss so many people. So I looked into this guy, and it's pretty obvious he's a scam artist. Now, this is going to be a great learning point, a great example, and I, of course, have been showing everyone now in the world for about 15 years, since about 2008, 2009, about the media, how the financial media and the media in general, how they work with their so-called experts, how they work together to benefit each other and to screw the audience. Ad-based content is a scam. Advertisement-based content is a scam. You, the audience, are getting scammed. I've proven that over and over again. And I'm going to prove that today. And the reason why it's a scam is because, folks, think about it. It's quite simple once you realize that who's paying for the ads? Who's paying for the ads, right? Some company out there. The financial industry, the financial media is the easiest, the most obvious, the clearest example of this, because the financial media, primarily the advertisers are from the financial industry. Right? So therefore, the content is going to be focused on that, obviously, and you're going to have the media picking what they call experts, and they're actually scammers, idiots, broken clocks, and also frauds. That's about 95% of them. 95%, that is to say, 95% of the coverage in the financial media consists of so-called experts they have picked that are either scammers, contrarian indicators, fraudsters, broken clocks, right? You can write that down. And I've proven that over the years. I have exposed, the only person in the world to have done this, by the way, selfless work, trying to help the public. I have sacrificed tens of millions of dollars easily doing this. It's done nothing for me. It's actually hurt my business, but I've exposed, and I am the leading expert on exposing charlatans like Peter Schiff. I have published probably over 200 articles and videos on Peter Schiff, exposing his tactics, exposing his track record, exposing his con job, his false, and in some cases, I believe, illegal statements. Illegal, it's according to the securities industry. I'm not a securities attorney, but that's what I believe. I've also exposed, and the leading person exposing Harry Dent, Jim Rogers, Mark Faber, right? All these guys, the Agora Financial guys, Porter Stansberry, Doug Casey, David Stockman, Jim Rickards. Go down the list, folks. I've been doing this for 15 years, and today is December 23rd, 2023. No one in the world can come close to the work that I've done here. And the reason why is twofold. First of all, it requires a lot of insight and knowledge, insider insight. Not just having worked on Wall Street as I have, because there's not every person that's worked on Wall Street knows what's going on. There's a lot of idiots, because many of these people are just salesmen and they're morons. And I'm talking about top level insight. Now, those of you who know me know, and those of you who don't know me, I should tell you, I predicted the financial crisis with more detail and accuracy than anybody in the world. And I will go up, I will back that. I'll back that by $50,000. And I've actually, that claim has been backed now up to $1 million for 12 years. 12 years. That was, I think I removed it after about 2021. I had no takers. I'll go ahead. In fact, that statement I just made with the financial crisis, $100,000. I have the leading track record in the world. In fact, I could argue I'm the only person that predicted it. And if you don't understand why, I encourage you, I invite you to check videos that I have done that address this, because many people are instead of looking into things, people just want to think they know everything, especially this young generation. And those are the least likely people to know anything. You can go through that. I'm not going to get into that, but I have explained why. And my argument's very solid. I am probably the only person that actually predicted the financial crisis, right? And I'll go ahead and tell you briefly why. Because, and those of you who are scratching your head, your knowledge is based upon some fictional Hollywood movie, right? If you make a trade and don't tell anybody about it in advance, that's not predicting anything. You're gambling. I wrote in 2 books what would happen, the details. I explained everything. And I did so in advance. You understand? And I enabled anybody in the world who read those books to make a fortune. Nobody in the world did that. That's fact. And you can find 2 key chapters on the real estate collapse online, archive.org. Just type in my name, Mike Stathis, and you'll find it. Or go on the website. So, getting back to the main issue here. And this is, we're talking about the media because Adam Kobeissi has used the media. And in fact, I'm starting to suspect that he probably paid people on Fox to promote him, because Fox has a long history of scam artists that accept money to do that, like Charles Payne, for instance. Okay? We'll get to that here shortly. So this is probably going to be several videos. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to make the video too long, so I may separate it. So understand, first of all, we're talking about the media. The media works with these guys. Why? Because the media gets shit content. They get clowns, contrarian indicators, con artists, frauds that provide the audience with disinformation, with bad recommendations, with stupid narratives. And that causes the audience that is naive enough to listen to blow up. They lose money. What happens then? The audience doesn't really understand how they lost money. They don't realize it was Jim Cramer. They don't realize it was Peter Schiff. They don't realize it was Jim Rogers. You understand? They don't really understand. They don't know consciously who it was they listened to, usually. And so they don't see, they don't understand who the enemy is, the financial media. So they keep watching. So ultimately what happens is that once they blow up after listening to these so-called experts who are, once again, contrarian indicators, con artists, frauds, scam artists, idiots, 95% of the content, that's what it is, at least, and it's probably even more. And by the way, the 5% of the content that's legitimate, from legitimate experts, you're not going to get any valuable information. I can guarantee you that. I've gone over this for many years, and I've proven it. So what happens after these people, the audience that trust the experts in the media, have blown up, have lost a lot of money in their accounts? Guess what? Advertisements pop up for Merrill Lynch, for JP Morgan Chase, for Charles Schwab, for Morgan Stanley. You understand what I'm saying, folks? For other brokerage firms, for insurance companies, for mutual fund companies, for ETFs. And so these people, they look at their account and say, you know what, I need help. I'm going to call a financial advisor, or I'm going to invest in this fund. You understand? So imagine if you're running a platform for advertisements geared towards the financial industry. How valuable are those advertisement slots if your audience needs help a lot? The advertisement slots are very valuable. You understand? They can raise the price that they charge Charles Schwab, that they charge Merrill Lynch, that they charge Morgan Stanley, that they charge Chase, so on and so forth. You understand? This is how it works. Now, the chump, the so-called expert, they get free marketing. The media clowns, they tell the audience that their experts are great. They've got great track records. They cherry pick. They don't show the full track record. They make you think that they should be listened to. And folks, I'm telling you right now, if you think so, you are completely clueless. I have exposed all these people. Many I haven't even talked about. I mean, the Nigerian knuckleheads, Josh Brown, Barry Ritholtz, you name it, folks. You name it. So this is I'm just kind of laying down the plot so you can understand as we go forward here, because it's very important to see what's going on with this chump, Adam Kobeissi. Now, you can tell from the he's a parasite, and you can look at him and you can tell he's a parasite. Look at the face. Do you trust this guy? Let's take a look here. Well, we'll take a look at him shortly. Now, I'm going to have to be careful on the language that I use because I don't want to get this content censored or banned, because I want this to go everywhere. I want this to be spread around everywhere, okay? So I'm going to go ahead now, and this is about an 11-minute video. I'm going to go ahead and cut this off, and I'm going to continue with another video because I don't want to make these too long. So I'll see you shortly.
There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital, and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't.
So things went very well, and then the economy collapses, and so all of a sudden people are saying, well, it was Alan Greenspan's fault because he should have anticipated this. Did you think that was fair?
Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. One of the things I put in the second book I wrote was how the IMF missed it, the Federal Reserve missed it. You go down a whole series of the major forecasting.
Well, everybody got it wrong, let's say.
You can't have a crisis of that nature that is not a surprise. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital, and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. There are two fundamental reforms that we need is to get adequate capital, and two, to get far higher levels of enforcement of fraud statutes. Existing ones, I'm not even talking about new. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which, I mean, fraud is a fact. Fraud creates very considerable instability in competitive markets. If you cannot trust your counterparties, it won't work. And indeed, we saw that it didn't. Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. Things were being done which were certainly illegal and clearly criminal in certain cases, which nobody forecast the 2008 crisis. 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 Nobody forecast the 2008 crisis.